This is Hello Brain, presented by Brainovation Network. Welcome back to Hello Brain. I'm your host, Collin Adams, and as we continue in our interview series, today's guest is Glen Lubbert, CEO of Stamina Lab. Glen has dedicated his work to helping coaches, clinicians, and leaders move beyond simply identifying problems and toward empowering meaningful, lasting change through solution-focused coaching. In this conversation, we'll explore the foundations of solution-focused coaching program, what makes this coaching unique, and how asking better questions can unlock better outcomes. Welcome to Hello Brain, Glen.
Hi, Colin. Thank you for having me, Colin.
Yeah, glad to have you. I know we've had so many conversations in the past, so it's great we finally get to do this in a recorded sense.
Yeah, totally.
So before we dive into solution-focused coaching, I'd love for our audience to get to know you a bit. I know every time I talk with you, I feel like I learned something that you were doing in the past before this. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and maybe some of the journey that brought you to the work that you're focused on doing today?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in working in health, wellness, and technology for 25 years. I started a technology company which worked with thousands of medical practices, hospitals, and clinics across the United States and Canada. Started when I was 25, and built that up and had a lot of success in that, and working with those that constituents, and really learning more about what helps clients and our team go through these change process. And the one of the big things that came out of that learning from that business was that, that not only did you have to be really expert in technology, be expert in the business, the sales side and the financials thing, but you had to be really an expert in humans and be able to move them through the change process. If I wanted to get something done, I knew that strategically what's going to happen, to move the people along was obviously key to that puzzle. And that's one of the areas where I was strong in. A lot of those other areas, that one wasn't my strongest suit. And that was, there's several different ways that got me to this place, but that was one of the questions I asked is, what will impact change in people? And because I realize also that when you have your team comes into work, they're not just coming into work just to work on the project you have. They have whatever's going on in their life too as well. And oftentimes you need to help guide or coach or help them solve the challenges that's blocking them from being able to show up for their best selves at work to be able to achieve your goals. So solve that one, to be able to solve that one, to be able to actually get to the company strategic goals.
Got it. And, I know you kind of shared a little bit in there how it was behavior change and working with staff members and your team members to really influence behavior, which is, one of the largest mountains to climb in any role, in any job. How did that realization eventually lead to the creation of Stamina Lab, what you're doing now? And what was maybe the vision that you were hoping to bring to life with this company?
Yeah, well, I think the journey goes through world of behavioral science, and I was certified in the Tiny Habits approach methodology to behavior change, and by Stanford's BJ Fogg, and went through that training program, learned a lot about habits and how those come together, and the limitations of habits, really, and the rigidity of the habits, that the fact that context changes constantly, and for habits to work, you have something that happens, and you use something new, something you already do, and you add on something new you want to have. And that's kind of how the idea behind Tiny Habits is habit formation. And it can work in certain situations in very specific items, but weekends happen differently than weekdays. The seasons change, we change, the weather changes. If you have other people in your life, that's constantly changing. So context changes constantly. That's one thing we all can agree, that change is constant. And so where that struggles with habits is that if any of those things happen, then your habits could break. Imagine if you go on vacation, it's harder to do some of the habits that you do when you're at home, or like the weekend, and the weekdays type things. In a perfect world and nothing is moving, that was where you can make those habits work. And from that experience, I met my partner, Dr. Deborah Teplow, and she was working in the solution focused space and solution focused space, which was different than the habits. And it allows for much more flexibility, much more agency in the person's lives. And that really attracted me because what I intuitively got from my experience at the company was that dwelling on the problems would get us nowhere. They just kept people spinning. And the I even used the word solution. I'm solution focused before I even knew anything about the science or that before, because it just would get me out of the conversation that was miring down. Oh, well, we did this in the past, or this doesn't work, and you did this to me, or I did this to this person did this to me, and you just got stuck in these conversations around that. So intuitively, I knew that was trying to solve those problems were not getting us anywhere. And so when I learned about this approach with my partner, Dr. Teplow, that it really resonated deeply and intrinsically.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying about Dr. BJ Fogg, when I read the Tiny Habits book, I didn't go through the full certification program, but speaking of context that doesn't change and how habits can really flourish in that kind of a setting, I actually read that book during COVID when everybody was inside
Perfect.
all the time.
Yeah.
And it was perfect because I did his push-up habit, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but he talks about this habit where he hated push-ups, he sucked at them and wanted to get better, and thought like, well, okay, what's something that I'm doing every day no matter what? And going to the bathroom was that
Mhm.
thing. And so I adopted that, and every time I went to the bathroom, I'd get down and do like maybe 5 push-ups to start. And over time, that built from 5 to 10 to 30 to 40 at a time. And so I was at one point doing something like 300 push-ups a day just because I was going to the bathroom and drinking a lot of water. And that's great. But questions come up like, what if you go out to eat and you go to the bathroom? Do you just get down on the public bathroom floor and hit the push-ups? And I was like, no, I'd like keep a tally in my head, but that system breaks down quick when the environment starts to change. And that's where I think the value of what you said with agency and the way that solution-focused coaching approach is different from that, or different from just associating with habits only, is so valuable. And as long as we're talking about that, for someone who's never heard of it before, how might you explain what solution-focused coaching is and what makes it so powerful and unique?
Well, the solution focused approach comes from it's an evidence based approach, and it comes from a simple premise that if you're coaching someone or yourself, the person in front of you is already competent and already doing some of the things that work. And that's a key piece, is that you're not analyzing what's broken. You're focusing on what they want and the moments it's already happening, even just a little bit happening. And this is really what differentiates it from other approaches, because you're not going down a root cause analysis to try to figure out what caused it and then trying to figure out a substitute for it. And then when that next trigger happens, you would change that out. You're never falling off the wagon. Like I said, like to say is that you're always doing something, even just a little bit. And that's what we're trying to focus the attention on that. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, she's a neuroscientist, and she wrote a great book of How Emotions Are Made, one of my favorite books. And she has a theory, which is that our brain is a prediction machine, which is at the time was a little more controversial, but now it's pretty much given that our brain predicts us where to point to, and that predicts our emotions, predicts what we want to do. And so what we're doing with solution focused is that we're helping it predict these things that we want the outcome to be. And that allows for flexibility across all contexts, because on all types of situations, because our brain doesn't know the difference between the past, present, or the future. So when we envision that future in as much detail as possible, our brain has already been there. So when you get up against roadblocks, like weather or time or money or location or a day of the week or family or whatever the barrier is. We're not trying to solve for that barrier. We've described that present a future in so much detail that our brain is super smart, super wily, and it'll figure a way to get there. We like to say there's many paths to the same river. So if you get stuck down one path, there's another path that you can still get to that river. And what we're trying to do with solution focus is to just define, describe that river, and then look for evidence of where we're already on that path.
Yeah, I love how you guys talk about the idea of different paths, and that you don't have to just choose one path in particular to get that outcome. That outcome described and understood and even felt and seen in detail can come from many paths. And that gives people agency, like you've said, which is so important. Because if you get, like you said, weather, for example, if you're someone who likes to go to the gym for exercise, but then it's, you live in Michigan in January and you're covered in 4 feet of snow and there's no chance you're getting to the gym, how do you continue? Well, if you have more of a solution-focused mindset or approach to whatever it is that outcome is, then you'll find a way, because you're already imagining what that future is instead of being stuck on what the barrier is to getting to that future.
Well, because they have it's a tactic. That's the tactic. But why do you want to do those push-ups that you were describing? What difference will that make? That's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get to that description of that river, and not go right to tactics, because there's many, the tactics are the paths. There's many tactics to get to that river. So we're trying to focus our attention on that river and look for evidence where we're already on the path to that. So when you describe that and what that really is and what difference is going to be and what it means to you, so that the thing is, I want to be healthy. I want to exercise. I want to be able to, so I can have the energy to do all the things I love to do, be present for my family and friends, and just happy and joyful. Eventually the logical conclusion gets down to the basic things that we all want to have in our world. But that then changes things from rigid habits to okay, that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, it's super storming snow outside. I can't shovel the car. I can't even get the car out of the driveway. But my goal is to be healthy. What can I do even in this space, in this hotel room or wherever I'm at, that will still show me that I'm on that path? There's a million things you could do in a room by yourself to be able to do that. Or even if you have a kid, okay, what can I do? I just saw somebody doing something where, I can't remember who it was, some actor or something, but they were doing squats, and they had their young kid, and he would squat and he'd throw him in the air and squat, throw him back. And so,
That's
we're
fun
playing.
for everybody.
Yeah, we're playing with the kid, but really using the child as part of his workout. Oh, lots of different. I need to work out, but I got all this other stuff to do. But what can I still do that will keep me on that path to, on the path of what person I want to be? And I mean, on the perfect day, or the things when you want to try to get, you want to try, if you're training for something or doing something specific, you want to get as many days as you possibly can on that in an ideal situation. But this is why solution focus is so, for the coach and for the person that is receiving it, it's so much more joyful. And that's, I think, the key. It's so much more joyful because you're not trying to, again, go down to analyze the root cause problem, and you could get to be creative, and you don't spend any time beating yourself up for things that you didn't do. One of my favorite examples is, we all try to reduce our sugar. So if you're talking to your coach, I'm trying to lose my weight, okay, try to reduce sugar. And between the one session, this could be the session with anybody. It could be your brain health person. You could be your fitness instructor. It could be your health coach. It could be your doctor. It doesn't matter. But the idea is I want to be healthier and reduce some weight on this. So reducing sugar. But between my sessions, I broke down and I had a half a pint of ice cream. And traditional approach that says, okay, and I beat myself up the whole week because I knew I was going to have to tell you, Colin, that I had a half a pint of ice cream, and I'm afraid how you're going to react to this, because I committed to you that I was going to, do this thing. And I just beating myself up over that. So then I get the thing, the traditional approach that says, okay, Glenn, that's fine. Let's figure out what triggered you to have that half a pint of ice cream. The next time that happens, we'll come up with something that's a little more, that's used more productive or more healthy or whatever. So the next time that happens, you'll be able to go to that. Seems logical. Okay, now I have to go. Now, I've already beaten myself up for doing it. Now I have to go back and tell you what happened again. And so, okay, now my ex-wife called. I got a fight over the kids, and I was frustrated with the day of work, and so I got the half a pint of ice cream. Okay, so the next time your ex-wife calls and this happens, what can you do? Da, 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 da. Then I come up with a strategy. Well, that's a whack-a-mole system, because okay, maybe it's not my ex-wife, but maybe it's something else that happens, or something else that happens. It doesn't matter, and with the solution focused approach, here's the key question that we would ask. And that you would, if I said to you, Colin, I'm just upset I had that half a pint of ice cream, you'd say, well, what kept you from eating the full pint of ice cream? Well, you need the whole, Colin, I need full pint of ice cream because I know I'm trying to reduce my sugar, and I was satisfied, and I knew what I wanted, and it was just a bit of temporary thing, and I knew where I wanted to go. And I said, that's good, and that's enough. And whatever else you might come up with. And so now I've just had taken agency in that moment. And you know what? Even in that fact of having the half a pint of ice cream, I still had agency. There's a time I stopped. Or you ate the whole pint, and we'll catch you from going to the store and get a second one. There's a point where you stop. Or you brought to bear some thing that you have inside you. And again, we're the prediction machine. So we're just we're constantly as a coach, or whatever your position is, and when you're trained in this approach, your job is to constantly ask these questions to help put these people, put your client, your patient or whatever into the mode of looking for times when they are bringing to bear their own skills and agency to the situation. And this can happen in a 5-minute conversation, a 10-minute conversation, a 30 minutes practical coaching session, but you're just trying to pretendly practice to bring them back to that. And the prediction machine will start them looking for those times. And now the next time I have, no matter what the trigger is, I will have remembered the last time I brought to bear that I only had half a pint of ice cream and what I did then. And I might have the half a pint of ice cream again and still remember, oh, yep, that's right, I stopped here. Or I might get to the point where I even go to the grocery store and be like, you know what, I know I'm going to stop anyways. And I catch myself earlier, whatever. Or I mean, eat a whole pint of ice cream and I just want to not beat myself up because there's nothing productive that comes from that. And so we just wanted to get you didn't fall off the horse. You didn't fall off the horse. You are still moving towards the person you're trying to be.
Yeah, and if you think about how you even just explained that, the person has the triggering event, whatever it might be, and they recognize in that moment, this is where I had the half pint of ice cream, but immediately the thought goes to the agency that they had to not eat the full pint or the second pint, instead of beating themselves up, like you said, about having the half pint and having to admit that to their coach, which is a huge deal in terms of the joy factor of life. When you can look at something and see it as a pathway, one pathway to an outcome, and you can start to associate the process of getting to that outcome with joy and the occasional, hey, I slipped up, or I didn't do this perfectly, but that's okay because I had the agency to do this instead. That's a huge, huge, huge game changer in behavior change, because now the change that we're hoping for isn't dreaded, it's enjoyed. And one thing we know about humanity in general, I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for others, change is hard, and we hate it in any context, whether it's like moving to a new city or something very small, like instead of eating 2 eggs for breakfast, you have 1. Like, we just hate change all the way around. And so if you can change the approach to the change process, it makes a huge difference in the person's ability to follow through on it, but also their ability to enjoy it.
Yeah, this approach is has solid science behind it. It comes out of a solution-focused brief therapy, and it's got 40 years of research behind it, and thousands of research studies, over 100 meta-analysis that show that this approach works, and it works for sustainable long-term behavior change, and it where it equals or exceeds any other approach, even the cognitive behavioral approach that, and the more mechanical habit approach that we talked about before, and it happens quicker and it happens more joyfully. So that's, I think, the two pieces that are important. And like I said, for the practitioner and for the person receiving it, you don't have to be an expert in. You don't have to go searching in their own lives to solve the problems. You don't have to be an expert in how this is working. This client is already knows what to do. They're in there, and you start asking these questions, and they start realizing it. For a session, if you're doing a different kind, if you're whatever you're doing, whether you're a practitioner or whatever, and the reason this approach fits so well in there, because like I said, it could happen in a 5-minute interaction, it can happen in a 10-minute interaction. We train people from the front desk, from the very first phone call, all the way through the whole process. And even in the last bit, you could be when someone's leaving, and that you can say to them, if they're, let's say they're working on their sleep, or yeah, that sounds like a sleep. Between now and the next time we meet, be on the lookout for when your sleep is going just a little bit better, or your wind down is going just a little bit more the way you would like it to be. Notice when that happens. I'll be curious to hear when we meet next time. All right, now you've just prime them to look out for when because they are going to be doing things. We all do things. But we have a negativity bias, so we discount. We constantly discount it. So all we're doing is getting that prediction machine to start looking for when I am on doing things a little bit better. And those things just pile up. And that's why change happens so quickly, much more quickly, and lasts so much longer, because you've now retrained the questions that they're asking themselves.
Yeah, and the linguistics of that just even gave me chills even right now in this moment, because I've seen it work so many times. And you talked about how the coach has a more joyful experience even through this as well. So I want to talk next about the foundations of solution-focused coaching program that you have at Stamina Lab. First, what inspired you guys to create it? And then what can participants expect from the experience? I know you guys have multiple things layered in there that are really cool and really engaging. Let's start there, and then I'll ask the next question after that.
Yeah, the foundations of the solution-focused health coaching, we created this because we kept working with practitioners and being asked by our partners and medical practices, like, okay, well, we could have you do this for us. We can have you connect with us for coaches, but we really want this trained with our staffs. And so we kept getting that over and over and over again. So we had already had a training program in place internally. So we said, all right, let's productize this and externalize this. And the foundations piece is just to get. I mean, even if you just do this foundations, even the first few lessons, you're already going to have an immediate impact on the lives around you, because you just start to change. This is not a script. This is not a technique. This is a stance. This is how you show up in the world. And when you start to orient that way, it'll impact your personal relationships, your loved ones, and again, just a few little things that you can start being able to help your clients just by these small, subtle questions that orient them in that direction, starts orienting you in that direction as well. So that's how we got to that. And right now we've been approved by the Indiana University School of Medicine for 6 AMA, PRA, CME credits, and the American Council on Exercise. We've been approved for 7 continuing education credits. So that we've had our course reviewed by some of the best in the country to say, hey, yeah, this is work. Again, it's built on solid 40 years of science.
Yeah, and Dr. Deborah Teplo is just incredible, huh?
Yeah, she is. She's fantastic, and she, I learn from her constantly about how to improve it. Because what after you go through the foundation basic, we have what's called practice lab, and during the foundations, you do get to meet with Dr. Teplo a few times for one-on-one consults, and this is really where you get to, hey, you learn a little bit, you go try it out, and then you're like, okay, I did it, but then now somehow we got the problem talk, and I didn't know how to get out of it, and now I got mired down. And because, like, for example, someone said, we just did this one recently, is that first part of the session is, you say how you're doing, how are you doing, and we have a negativity bias. So here's all the things that I'm going wrong. Well, how do you pull someone out of that? Or even if someone you do ask the right good question, then they just go back down to the catastrophizing thing. Oh shit, how do I pull them out? Sorry, how do I pull them out of that? And so with Dr. Teplo, she'll be able to help you just learn how to just in that case, how do you interrupt in that case, but how do you continue to ask the questions that will get them out of that being mired in those negative thoughts. And there's just little things you can do. And even if someone goes on a rant about what's been going wrong, they'll leave breadcrumbs about what they are doing well. And you'd be like, oh wow, all these things are happening. Like, how are you even managing? How are you even able to deal with that? Okay, now I've asked them to say, wait, I am dealing with it, because they're standing in front of you. I'm dealing with it because I'm doing this, and this, or whatever it is. Whether it's the negative past or the anxiety of the future, there's questions to be able to ask to bring them, we call it above the line, to be able to help them out of those negative patterns.
Yeah, and that's really important that you note that, because during the program, whether it is in the didactic portion or the practice lab, or even working with the practice agent that you set up for coaches to train on, you get multiple different ways to experience the material so that it really sinks in, so that you can, I think how did you say it? It's a way of being, or a presence.
That's a stance.
It's a stance. Yeah, it's a stance. And that takes time to develop, but it happens quick in little ways. Like, I think module 1 is on hope theory, and you can understand hope theory as a coach or a trainer or a doctor or whatever, and you can direct the conversation even a little bit in that direction. You've completely changed the entire experience for the patient or client just from module 1, which is a huge deal. What would you say are some of the other key skills or mindset shifts that might develop as someone is going through this?
Yeah, the hope series is a great example. That's the first question. You need to know where the person wants to go. What do you hope to get out of this session? What do you hope to get out of they're coming to you to do something? What do you hope to do out, even our time together right now? Like, what do we hope to get? I hope to get out of this podcast, or you hope to get out of this podcast? We need to know where we're going to go. If we don't know where we're going to go, then we don't know what questions to ask them, because we'll just be guessing and listening and riffing off of what they're saying, but we will have no destination. And so having a destination, and that's for yourself, it seems so intuitive, but so forgotten so much of the time. Like, what do they hope to get? Because that automatically puts agency inside the person we're working with. It's like, they have to think about it. And sometimes they say, I don't know. That's okay. Well, between now and the next time, think a little bit about, be on the lookout for when you have some idea about what you hope to get out of this. And that is, I think, one of the most important mindset shifts. We have a 3-question framework that helps you move from what are your best hopes to where they want to go. And like you said, we have a solution coach AI practice tool so that you can practice in low stakes environment without anybody else having to hear you talk. And it really allows you to be calm and comfortable with being able to do this and seeing how a client will respond before you actually do it with the
Yeah.
human.
Right. Yeah. It's helpful. And I think what was so valuable to me as I went through training with you and Dr. Deb a few years ago was that I was an athlete in college. And I was a pitcher. So on top of being an athlete, there's just that extra little bit special, weird nature that comes with being a pitcher, especially a left-handed one, where I just had this, I don't even know, like obsession with the details for things. And, as a pitcher, especially if you miss your spot by that much, the ball is 400 feet behind you all of a sudden. And so I was always fine-tuning the way I threw the ball, the way I carried myself on the mound, where I put my glove before I started my windup. And I just loved how you get so granular in this program about fine-tuning those conversation skills and the listening skills and the noticing skills to really serve that person at your very best. And that's what drew me to it. And I know that there are many high-performing people who are coaches and trainers and doctors. The process to become a doctor is insane, as it should be, but they're high-performing people and they look for things that are like this, that are going to push them to be very, very, very good at what they do. And that's what I loved so much about it. And an example from when I've used this in a real setting was when I was a trainer. I was doing the gym I was working at had this like status quo routine that we'd take people through in their free sessions that we called fit sessions. Someone would come in as a new member to the gym and they'd have a free opportunity to work out with the trainer for an hour. And the end goal of that on the gym side was that we would sell them personal training. So it was revenue based in nature. And for the first 4 months that I was working at this gym, I went through that status quo thing and just saw myself maybe close like, I don't know, 20, 30% of my fit sessions, which is low. You want to hit like 70% to be considered successful in that world. And at the same time, I was starting to work with you and Dr. Deborah in live sessions, kind of like what a practice lab would be now. And I just remember every time just saying something get drilled by Dr. Teplo and being like, what if you said it like this? Or what if it was this? Or she'd say, what else? What else? What else? And I started to use that in my conversations in these fit sessions. I'd come in and instead of injecting my agenda on the session, I would just sit back, super chill, relaxed dude that I am from California and say, what are you most hoping for? This is your free hour. How can I be most helpful for you? What are you looking for? Or, something like that. And there was just this in the room because someone's already feeling tense about being around a personal trainer in a gym. Maybe they don't have a history of working out. And so that first question just brought the temperature down like 100 degrees and allowed them to just talk and be themselves. And then I had invaluable information. I knew exactly why they were sitting in that chair today. And then I made the entire session about making that outcome come true for them in that 45-minute session. And no joke, my fit session closing number went from like 20 to 30%, literally to 100. Every time I got a fit session, I went through the same process and everyone bought personal training. And I'm not just making that up to fluff the story. It was literal. I promoted from the lowest level trainer to a master 2 level trainer over the course of a year, which is one of the fastest that's ever happened as a result of this. So there was a ton of value, of course, for the clients who were able to benefit from this version or this approach to coaching, but also for me, like my sessions were joyful. I enjoyed working with people and I also got paid better and got more clients, which is, everybody wants that. So, that's just how valuable it can be in a practical sense.
And you, when you ask that question, you learn more about what they wanted, more than just, hey, I want to improve, lose weight. You learn really deeply why they were there.
Yeah, because I would ask the question, what are you most hoping for? Or what's your most hoped for outcome? And it's, maybe it always starts at like, oh, I want to like have bigger biceps, but then you just listen and stay quiet and say, okay, what else? And then doot, 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 they start to just drop little things and they get all the way down to the very personal reason why they're doing this thing. And then the most beautiful transition question ever in the world is, what difference would that make for you?
Yeah.
Then they start to visualize that outcome. They don't just hope for it, they start to visualize it. And then we can work together on pathways.
And what's so powerful about that is the question is the intervention. The question is the intervention, and you have already helped them. Even if they never signed up for you, you've already helped them significantly on their journey for whatever they came to you for, because they have now been able to talk about that and say it out loud and define that in their head and picture it in their head. Now, no matter what, even if they stop, money prevents them from going to training, or the weather, or whatever the blockage, they move to a new city or whatever. But they knew what this river is going to be like, and so now they have multiple paths to get there. So that's why we train even the front, the first person answering the phone at a practice or a clinic, is because those questions, they're already, the moment they engage with your entity, or you or their entity, is that they are already on that path to change. Because that first question, every question is the intervention.
Exactly. And, the brain is a real live thing in here. And, we talk about, on this show, we talk about the brain all the time in different contexts. But in this one in particular, you brought up how even if they didn't sign up for training, something has changed. And it's a new experience. It's a new way of thinking that they've been given, or they've come up with themselves that they didn't recognize that they had in them, or the desire that they didn't recognize that just had to be pulled out via questions. I kind of think about it contextually from like a cognitive assessment that I was involved with called NeuroCatch in the past. And the entire purpose of the assessment is to notice these things called event-related potentials, where the brain is predicting, and then you give it something different from what it would be predicting. Like instead of pairing basketball hoop, you say basketball ice cream, and your brain's like, whoa, hold on, what? And there's a response, and the brain changes itself and reorients itself to have a better response next time. When someone goes through the process of being coached in a solution-focused way instead of cognitive behavioral therapy or habit change or whatever it might be, it creates that moment neurologically for them where it's like, oh, whoa, what do you mean I have agency? Like, oh, I don't need to just drink this disgusting smoothie every morning that I hate. I don't need to do this or that. I don't need to do 50 push-ups every morning when I wake up. You mean that I can do this instead that I really like to get to that same outcome? Because they understand the outcome, and it's totally different and new for them from what they've experienced in the past. So, one other thing that I wanted to bring up in this conversation to transition a little bit was how well this pairs with different kinds of coaching or programs, whatever it is. For instance, neurofeedback has been a big part of my journey in brain health. And recently I've been working with a clinic who is adopting and building a neurofeedback practice there in their clinic. And we use solution-focused coaching all the time in the conversations that they have with their clients, because neurofeedback, or brain tech in general, as you know, is kind of finicky sometimes, and it's hard to notice results immediately. And so if you don't have something giving a foundation or a back to why they're doing that thing, like a solution-focused conversation, it can be super difficult. So where have you seen this integrate well into different performance or health systems?
Well, first of all, I think that just by you having this underlying whatever protocol or program you're doing, first of all, gives you a deeply solid evidence-based science to underline behavior change, to underline everything you're doing. And so it's going to improve the outcomes of whatever modality you're working in. And so that I think just having that confidence to know, okay, at the very least, this is sitting on something that's super solid. And the fact that these again, it comes out of a solution-focused brief therapy. And so the emphasis is on the brief. And it's not traditional where a longer maybe a longer time would be a better business model, but this allows you to have more impact in a small amount of time, because again, it's the question is the intervention, what you ask about is where the brain goes. And we have a lot of practices and clinics we work with, and they change their all their intake questions, all their surveys or whatever, because lots of that information is okay. That's interesting, but how do I use it or whatnot? But if all the questions I put on that questionnaire are the intervention, by just filling out that questionnaire, they're already on the path of change. That gives a nice way to do the outcomes before and after, and including, in addition to whatever else modality you're using, you have that as well for so. And if you're like the neurofeedback example, if it takes a while for your brain to change, but if at the same time, you're asking, it's like, I'm not noticing anything. Well, at the same time, if you change your way their stance around this is, like I said before, is between now and the next time we meet, notice when your sleep or your focused or whatever is just a little bit more on the way that you want it to be. I'll be curious. The curious is a key question. I'll be curious to hear what you notice. And so again, the question, what you ask is where the brain goes, and so it's going to start to be looking out for where they are making progress. And so I think, again, it improves outcomes all over the place.
Absolutely. Yeah. They begin to look for and find the positive resources instead of leaning on that negative bias.
Because they're even if the protocol isn't doing, is being finicky, not doing the job, they are already on the path to they are on the path to being the person they want to be. They are on the path to that better, better sleep or more focus. And it's just helping you point that out and being able to continue to stack on top of that. When you like measure anything, or you test for anything, I have a watch, and I've done all every possible tracking thing you could possibly do. And these don't change behavior. That was one of my early questions. We bring it back to the beginning, how I got there. One of the early ones is I got a wearable, and that the beginning people would throw their wearables after 6 months, and they throw them away. And I go, these don't lead to change. Then what does lead to change? And now it's been over a decade I've been pulling on that thread. And the number one thing though you bring when you start tracking something, or if you even show up for a clinic at something, the number one thing you're doing is you're paying attention to it. And so by that point you're already paying attention. So now if it's a placebo, otherwise, if you're paying attention to this, improving your sleep, now let's just direct the brain to all the areas where you are on that path to change, and you're going to keep building onto this. Is why it leads to lasting change, because you haven't helped them fix a little widget part problem here with a habit, or you've changed the stance in which they show up in the world.
Yeah, and how powerful is that across the board?
Yeah. Well, and it presupposes competence in everyone that's around, that comes into it. That, again, against part of the agency.
Yeah. And that's a huge deal too in the world of behavior change, because a lot of people feel like they aren't capable, but this shows and provides a new way.
No, but like motivational interviewing is another approach too. And with solution focus, we presuppose that they are motivated. There's a reason they're sitting in front of you. They are motivated. Otherwise, they wouldn't be searching out a solution. So they are already motivated. So the job as the coach or the clinician or whatever is to continue to show them where they are making progress and helping them notice those opportunities. And the course that we have is helping you practice that stance and be able to use it and just there's different levels to be able to learn a few tech questions that, like, you would, if you listen to this podcast, you probably got some great questions out of this. The fact that you are listening to this podcast shows you are already on the path to change, to being a better behavior change person. Yeah. And so that notice that this is evidence that you are on that path. And then you gradually go, okay, now I'm using it consistently. Then it just becomes the air you breathe. And that's the journey that you want to be on through this work that you do with us.
So where can someone find this program?
Yeah, visit staminalab.io. It's staminalab.io. And if you're a Brain Innovation Network person, there's a link in the portal and a discount code there for you to take advantage of.
Yeah, that is, we've got a very cool partnership with Stamina Lab at Brain Innovation Network, and they've kindly offered a whopper discount on the program for anyone that's coming through the Brain Innovation Network. So we, of course, really appreciate that, because we're all about creating access to better brain health solutions. And this is the solution for better brain health solutions, in my opinion. Might not be biased, might be. Well, thanks so much for joining, Glenn. It's always a joy to talk with you. And
Likewise.
everybody who's listening, thanks so much for joining us on Hello Brain. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, share this episode, and remember, every better brain begins with better conversations. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to Hello Brain, presented by Brain Innovation Network.